It's a show that bears her name, but this past Sunday, The Weekly with Wendy Mesley was without its host. Mesley was off the air after what the CBC calls an incident. On Twitter today, Mesley said, "In the context of an editorial discussion about current issues regarding race, I used a word that should never be used." She wrote, "I was quoting a journalist we were intending to interview. I hurt people, and I'm deeply sorry. I'm also deeply ashamed." Both the CBC and Mesley declined on-camera interviews. CBC said in a statement she is off-air pending an investigation. Mesley says she's been asked to keep the process confidential.
I'm not sure why it is that after all these years, white journalists can't figure out. There are just some words that you don't say in front of people.
Andre Demise is a contributing editor at Maclean's magazine. He says this is part of a larger issue of systemic racism in journalism, pointing to a series of missteps this week at CBC, including the airing of a video that focused on the police's perspective and, due to a technical error, omitted the final moments when the vehicle drove into protesters.
The footage we broadcast did not meet CBC's journalistic standards.
Admit you've got a problem. In our national broadcaster, there's a commitment to diversity, but there is no conversation around who makes the news, who's in front of the camera, who's behind the cameras.
Yesterday, CBC News' editor-in-chief outlined the steps it's taking, including half of new hires from underrepresented equity groups, training editorial teams to be more inclusive in guest selection, and unconscious bias training.
We've been having the same conversation since 2000.
But Demise is tired of waiting.
I can't even tell you the amount of panels that I've been invited to or the amount of discussions that I've been asked to take part in, where we do explore things like unconscious bias training, which is to me just an utter crock, where we do talk about having new hires come in from underrepresented communities. The problem is when you bring those hires in, there's a bulwark. They don't get far in the workplace.
Thanks so much for joining us.
It's not clear how long the investigation will take or when Mesley could be back on air. Eli Glasner, CBC News, Toronto.